Hi guys, welcome back to the podcast. I've been meaning to watch that. I'm your host Monica, and we're back again with a new topic, a new guest like we do every single week. And this week we have a returning guest with us today. You guys remember her from our episode where we talked about Poor Things, which was really fun, a really great episode. She is a YouTuber. She makes really awesome video essays about like film and media. I'm 100% sure you've seen her Harry Potter video essay, which is how I discovered her. She also has this really great podcast called Respect the Dead with her friend Kaylin Conrad, which you guys should definitely listen to and subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts. So I'd like you guys to please put your hands together and welcome back to the pod, Hoots!
Yay! Back
Yay!
again to discuss some like weird feminist movie.
Yes, because you know what? There's always something a little quirky in the
Mm,
cinema. You know.
it's so true. I like these quirky feminist movies.
Yeah, I
Very
mean,
different vibes though on these two.
yes, and it's fun. It's a fun time. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
enjoying something that pushes the envelope. You know, why not? So, for those of you guys, if you couldn't tell already, we're going to be talking about The Substance. It is a new film coming out in theaters, and it has been talked about, discussed, completely picked apart by the discourse online, whether it's on Letterboxd, on Twitter, on TikTok, on YouTube, wherever. I'm sure you guys have heard of this movie, have seen some imagery with like the eggs, imagery with Demi Moore wiping makeup off her face, Margaret Qualley looking absolutely gorgeously dewy, and like pink makeup with a background and everything. But before we dive into The Substance, we're going to get to our first segment of the podcast, which is Media Mania, where we talk about new releases and some entertainment news. And the first piece of entertainment news that I want to discuss is this is something that is like very dear to me mainly because I am a huge fan of this show called Starstruck on Max and BBC Three. It's this romantic comedy starring Rose Matafeo, and I saw that she has a comedy special coming out very soon, and I was just very happy to see the news on Deadline. So I kind of wanted to talk about it because I love Starstruck. It was a very underrated show that was on Max, and it got put on Netflix because Max and Netflix has this weird distributing deal that they have. So a lot of Max shows are on Netflix now. So I got to rewatch it on Netflix and I enjoyed it a lot. And I'm very excited to see her Netflix special because I absolutely love her. I think she's very funny. She's one of the funniest like New Zealand comics that I've seen so far, even though I don't know a lot of New Zealand comics, but I think she's very endearing and very hilarious. And I don't know. I guess I'm just bringing this up to like remind people that Starstruck is a show, and you guys should watch it. It's on
I've
Netflix.
never even heard of it, so I've got a new show on my list now.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. So, Starstruck is this show about this woman, ordinary girl, right? She goes to a New Year's party and she hooks up with this guy. And what she doesn't realize is that the guy she hooks up with is like an action star. He's a movie star. And they start this like kind of casual relationship, not relationship. It's not really defined, it's not really a label on it, but they obviously like
Situationship.
each other. Yeah. And like they have like clear chemistry with one another, and I enjoyed the show so much. It's one of those shows you kind of just find and then you start watching it and you're like, "Oh, this is actually a gem. This is
Yeah.
actually spectacular." And I adore this.
Is it
So,
just one season?
I believe it's 2 seasons.
Okay.
I wish there were more seasons, but you know, streaming services. But
Do
yeah,
you feel like in those two seasons, did they tell like a complete story? Like, is it a satisfying two seasons, or do you feel like they left, they canceled it too fast?
I think it's pretty satisfying the story that they tell, mainly because the story is like so messy, but also fun and lighthearted and romantic that the first season it could have been it's the story alone because it leaves it on such like a strange cliffhanger, but season 2 really does like pick up on the story and continue on, and the romance that builds and the relationship that they build together is really endearing, and I feel like it's very realistic because dating is so undefined, and there's so many
Mm.
different, I guess, trends or like different things that people do in the world of dating now. So to watch this show that feels very reflexive of how messy and weird and how like icky dating is now was very refreshing, and I really enjoyed it. Like I love this so much, and I was.
Oh. Well, that, like I said, I've got something on my list. I've got something now that I've been meaning to watch.
Yeah, and I feel like that happens a lot with because so many people have so many streaming services, and so many streaming
There's so
services have so many shows on there that like there are
much out
shows that
there.
you, yeah, and I'm sure there are shows that you've watched like offhand that you remember, and it's not like the most popular show on the streaming service, but it's so good, and you're just like, I wish I could scream for the rooftops how good this show is so that people could watch it, and it's not just me. But that was, I guess that was me screaming for the rooftops about that show, which I wanted to bring up. So I really liked it, and I was just curious to see if you had seen it, or like if you probably know who she
No,
is.
I'd never even heard of it. So now, yeah, I got a new.
You have a new show! Yay! I'm so happy. Well, we'd love to see it. And another piece of media or another piece of entertainment news that I wanted to talk about was this article where Paul Mescal, he's talking about a moment that, oh my gosh, someone has helped me with her name.
Saoirse Ronan.
Okay,
Saoirse.
Saoirse?
Irish is a crazy language. Saoirse, yeah.
Saoirse. I got it. I got it. It's Saoirse. All right. Yes. So
Saoirse.
yes, Saoirse. So she was on the Graham Norton Show, and she was bringing attention to some of like the safety concerns that women have to deal with on like day to day, and it was really something. When I watched the interview, I feel like her remark was kind of like something that is so, I guess in my mind, simple, because the conversations I have with like women that I know, these are just things we talk about. These are things that we just kind of bring up. But a lot of times when a conversation veers into a certain, I guess, avenue or down a certain road, of course, when you have the female perspective and like a man is talking, he's not going to see things the way that you see it. So when she spoke up, you know, the moment kind of went viral, and low key, I was just kind of like, I mean, I don't feel like it went viral for any kind of reason. And Paul Mescal, he obviously addressed it, saying that like the quote is that, as you said, you're on a talk show like this and you're kind of just talking, and I'm not surprised that the message received as much attention that it got, because it's a massively important one. She's quite often, more often than not, the most intelligent person in the room, and I think she was spot on, hit the nail on the head. And it's also good that messages like that are gaining traction. That's the sort of conversation we should be having on a daily basis, which I thought was really great, and I thought was very interesting.
Right. And what
Mm-hmm.
he's responding to, it looks like a joke that about using his phone for as a weapon for a role,
Mm-hmm.
which I guess he and Eddie Redmayne thought were like a little thought was like a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
And she was like, nope, that's an everyday part of our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what we have to do. Hold your keys in a certain way. Although, don't hold your keys between your fingers. I know a lot of us are trained to like hold our keys between our fingers in case
Mm-hmm.
we like come across an attacker, but then you'll just slice up the inside of your fingers. You don't want to do that. Just hold
Yeah.
them like a knife.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I've been doing. And also, I have been like looking into getting some kind of tool to like protect myself, because I know with the results of the most recent election in America, a lot of people have been talking about getting like a pew pew and stuff like that. But I feel
Right.
like there are things on Amazon that you can find that can protect you. I would recommend like pepper gel as one thing. I would recommend a panic button, because it's something that's very loud and very disturbing. So if someone's near you, you have a panic button, it'll automatically draw attention to you. And also like there is something called like a nightstick, and I'm not exactly sure what it was, but I saw it on Amazon. And it's basically like a flashlight and also a taser in one. And it's something that can fit into like most bags if your bag is at like a
Right.
clutch. So when they were kind of talking in the interview and they were breaking it up, I was like listening. I watched the clip and I was just kind of like, no, I've held my phone in a way where like I'm holding it upside down in my hand, like I'm
You
going
can
to
hit
beat
somebody.
I'm gonna beat
Yeah.
somebody with this. Like if you come up to
They're
me,
so big nowadays that you could
yeah.
definitely you could do some damage with one of these.
Also, because like I go to a lot of screenings, and I don't live in like a metropolitan area in my state. I live in the suburbs. So whenever I
Mhm.
get invited to screenings, I have to drive like 30, 40 minutes to go to the city. And I don't live in the city anymore. I used to, but I don't anymore. And
Right.
walking Atlanta, the streets, you have to be careful because, you know, there are a lot of dark corners and a lot of dark alleys. Even if you're in a very populous place in Atlanta, like there's Atlantic Station, there's Midtown, there's Buckhead. There are all these neighborhoods in Atlanta that are very bustling and very like metropolis and full of people at late at night. There are also like places where you don't want to be by yourself. And you could just end up like on your own, like you're looking to order an Uber, you're trying to find out where you're trying to go, you're looking at your phone, you're distracted for 1 second, someone can come up behind you. So of course you
Right.
always have to try and be on alert, which is something that I've learned that I had to do while like going to Atlanta very often in the weekdays or like on the weekends. So I completely understood her bringing up that point in the interview, and I can understand how like to the men it's kind of like, oh, your phone's a weapon. Like that's so funny. I think I call people a lot, but like, no, no, no. If you're someone who is vulnerable and oftentimes attacked by randoms on the street, you have to
Right.
be on your guard, even if it's never happened to you. There are many stories of it just happening to them, just like on a normal night that they don't expect, and you
Right.
don't want to be caught off guard, you know?
It's just so wild how things that are so normalized for us, like to see them from the other perspective. Like somebody thinks like, oh, that's goofy and wild and out there. And it's like, no, this is kind of like a just like a very pedestrian thing for most women.
Yeah, this is something that we kind of have to adapt to. And this is something that we have to kind of just like adjust to in our lives. And there are so many things that you have to kind of like preemptively think about before leaving the house. Like for me, whenever I have to like leave, I have to make sure like my portable charger is fully charged. Okay, so I can keep my phone charged at night. I make sure I have like, you know, headphones if I need it to ignore somebody. You know, I always make sure I have like a mask so that like if I need to be in a place where like there are a lot of people, I put a mask on, or it just keeps
Mhm.
me from like being identified because you know a lot of metropolitan cities are putting in a lot of surveillance cameras and like
Right.
it's
Yeah.
already bad enough they're building Cop City in the middle of Atlanta, and now they're putting in more cameras all around the place. Like it's a measure to keep people safe, but it's not really to keep people safe. It's meant to surveil us. So
Right.
there are oftentimes like people who don't have to constantly think or worry about their own safety and just kind of live life on a whim. It's like, how do you do that? How does that
Right.
work? How does that feel? You know, like,
Yeah. And I don't think of myself as particularly like paranoid and stuff. I'm actually like I mean, I've lived in major cities like basically my entire adulthood. I feel very comfortable in the public sphere. But even with that like level of comfort and like even with how laid back I am compared to like other women, like I still, you know, I do the things that to me just seem like your basic like precautionary things, like locking the door at night. You know, we don't leave our doors unlocked.
right.
So like for me some of it is very like it makes perfect sense, but then yeah, you see our perspective kind of reflected back at us by people who've just never had to take any of that into consideration. And it's kind of shocking and illuminating.
Yeah. And it's never in a way where, you know, when, if I were to bring it up, like, I've been in conversations with people where they'll kind of bring up, um, let me think. Yeah, there was a conversation I had at an old job where someone was kind of talking about how like their family member is a cop and they don't understand how
Yeah.
people like don't like cops very often. And I brought up an instance where I was driving to a Bible study with my parents, and this cop was being kind of flippant with my parents because both my parents are from Haiti. They both still have strong accents, and the cop was trying to act like he didn't understand what they were saying. And I always get annoyed when people do that with my parents. It's always like, "Where are you from?" Or they act like they don't know what they're talking about. And as someone who
Right.
has been raised with people who have accents, it's not that hard to understand. You just need to like turn your ears on. That's it. But I brought
Right.
that up with them because you wouldn't know that because your experience with like cops is like something that's pretty normal and like chill, and like it's not something you ever have to like consider or think second guess about. And with my experience, it's something different because that's just one experience I've had. But I kind of bring it up to let them know that like the people you interact with, how they interact with you is not how they interact with everybody. So obviously,
Exactly.
like, Eddie Redmayne making a joke about using his phone as a weapon, he's never had to consider having to utilize whatever is near him to protect himself because he does
Right.
not know what it's like to have to be in a situation where you might have to fend for yourself. And that's not
Right.
something that comes up in his mind. It doesn't mean that, like, he is a bad dude or anything.
No,
It just doesn't cross
you
his
move through the
mind.
world in a different way, and that's,
Yeah.
yeah, again, like that's not his. It's not uh unfair or unkind of him to like make that joke, but not knowing, because he moves through the world in a different way. And I'm sure it was like a shock to him to hear like that's actually a very normal thing for people.
Yeah, yes. But I thought that was a really interesting article that came up, and I'm
Yeah.
also excited for Gladiator 2 because a lot of people have been talking about the film, discussing it. I was initially going to go to an early screening of it, but it filled up. And then I tried to reschedule, and then that one filled up too. So obviously, a lot of people are excited for, Gladiator 2, and people are trying to do the whole like Barbie Heimer thing with Gladiator and Wicked, which I don't think
Oh,
works.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, Barbenheimer was like a one-off thing. Don't try to like manufacture it. It
please.
was it's over. It's done. It was a
Right.
moment in time.
Like not every like huge release, like two huge releases happening at the same time, and one obviously geared more towards a male audience and one obviously geared more towards a female audience, like it does not mean it's Barbenheimer. Like,
No, and like it's one of those examples of like when a major corporation gets a hold of a meme, it like kills the meme. Like the Barbenheimer thing started as an online joke, and that
right.
was the beauty of it, and then it was over. Like don't try to like make it happen again.
Yeah, it's not something you should like run into the ground at
Yeah,
all. Yeah.
it's over. It's done. It's dead. You've already killed him.
Yeah. But I am a little excited to see Gladiator 2, but that would mean I have to watch Gladiator. And I'm going to be honest when I say, like, I'm not a huge fan of Ridley Scott as a director or as a
Mhm.
person, but I love Denzel Washington, and, that's the thing. You cast enough good people in your movie. I'm gonna
I'm gonna
grin and
go.
bear.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm gonna go
I
watch
think
it.
I don't know if I've ever seen the original Gladiator in its entirety. I think I've seen like a bunch of isolated scenes from it. It's like one of those movies that's like been on in people's houses, and I think I've seen like parts of it. But I
Yeah.
think I need to actually sit down and watch the movie Gladiator as like a,
Yeah.
as a single piece.
I am I'm very interested to see Gladiator 2, mainly because like a lot of people seem to really enjoy Paul Mescal as an actor, and I think this movie's called After Sun, um, the film where he plays like a single father. I have not watched Normal People, but I have also seen um the film he was in with Andrew Scott. The name escapes me, but I think the title has like strangers in it, something similar to that. I'm not entirely sure. I've seen Paul Mescal in like a few things, and I oftentimes like
Right.
if I'm not 100% sold on an actor, I have to like kind of give them grace and be like, maybe it's not this role, maybe it's another role. Maybe it's not
Right.
this role, maybe it's another role. So I'm hoping that Gladiator 2 is like the role that sells me upon Mescal. Because it's not that I don't think he's a good actor. I think he's good. He has to be good if people like him this much. But I haven't been able to kind of, I guess, find him as endearing as other people
Right.
seem to, I guess. And like me personally, with like, I feel like some people feel that way about, oh my gosh, his face is right in front of me and I forgot his name. The other actor who's alongside him that's not Denzel Washington in Gladiator 2. Pedro Pascal. Wow, how did I forget his name? Pedro
Oh,
Pascal.
see, I don't even know who is in Gladiator 2. I love Pedro Pascal.
Yes. And I grew very much attached to him through Narcos. Like that's how I grew my love
Oh,
for him. And in my head
right.
I'm like, maybe I need a TV show to get attached to him, but I can't watch normal people because I someone told me it's like a situationship with white people in it, and I was like, I don't know if that's for me because like I don't want to see a girl begging for a man's attention. That's not worth my time, you know.
Yeah, fair, fair.
Have you seen Normal People?
No, I haven't.
Okay. How do you like Do you like Paul Mescal? Like, do you enjoy him as an actor?
You know what? I don't actually think I've seen any of the things he's been in. He's like
Oh,
just somebody who's completely missed my like
radar.
yeah, he's been completely off of my radar.
Mm.
Yeah, I
Well,
haven't seen All of Us Strangers. I haven't seen Normal People.
All of Us Strangers is what it's called.
Yeah.
All of Us Strangers is actually a very beautiful film. It's very sad too. Also, I like the movie, but I feel like it was strange that like the parents in the film are the same age as Andrew Scott, like the actors. And I was kind of like, if you're a 30-year-old man, your parents are 60, 50.
Yeah.
Like Claire, I don't know the actress, Claire Foy, I believe. She is his age. Like they're the same age. Like why is she playing your mom?
Oh my God, she plays his mom. Yeah, I love Claire Foy, and I think she's like my age.
Yeah, I was very confused by that. I was like, this cannot y'all cannot be putting ageism in this movie. Like it can't. No, no.
Oh my God.
But I digress. There are a lot of films coming out currently in theaters, like Conclave. That was a movie I saw, which was very, very good. Heretic, which I said before we started recording, I feel like I look like the guy from Heretic right now with my sweater vest. Honora is a film a lot of people are talking about. We Live in Time with Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh, which I
Mhm.
watched and I cried and I loved. Obviously, Wicked is a film that's going to be coming out fairly soon, which a lot of people are very excited for. A lot of people have already watched. A lot of people have a lot of surprisingly good reactions to Wicked, which
Yeah,
I'm
I've
not
seen that.
surprised because like John M. Chu's very talented as a director, and also like the cast is exceptional. So
Yeah, he did a really good job within the Heights. So like he's demonstrated he definitely knows how to like do a movie musical.
hmm
Um, I'm honestly surprised with people's like positive reactions to it, just because like it's split into two parts, and I was like, it's gonna be so bloated, but apparently part one is pretty good.
hmm
So we'll see. And yeah, we're gonna get career defining performances from Cynthia Erivo and from Ariana Grande. Like I truly believe that. I believed even when I was like, oh, the movie's gonna be terrible. I still believed that we're gonna get amazing performances from both of them.
To be honest, I am not like a huge fan of movie musicals, even though I love musicals. But movie musicals can be kind of iffy for me because I'm very
Mhm.
particular about like the music mixing and the sound mixing, and like I want to
Right.
hear actors singing. And so a friend of mine, Shay Jones, she let me know that like they're singing live in the musical. So I was like, oh, well, thank goodness, because like the one thing I want to hear is Cynthia Erivo singing in the musical because I loved Mean Girls the musical because I had seen like recordings of the stage production, and then I watched the movie and I had a fun time, but of course like some of the singing in the movie just didn't work, and like some of the editing didn't work as well, even though like I had fun with the movie and everything. But I feel like a lot of the things like the editing stuff wasn't really fit together. It felt very much like they knew people thought that Mean Girls the musical or like Mean Girls the movie, they knew that people would think that this was a reboot of Mean Girls, and they did not understand that this was a movie adaptation of the
Right.
musical, which is an adaptation of the 2004 movie. So they didn't realize it was a turducken of adaptation. So a lot of
Right.
the songs that help the plot along in the musical were cut out. Some of the songs were cut short. The lead actress who plays Caddy, who is a good actress, doesn't have a strong singing voice in comparison to like Renee Rapp and like some of the other like actors in the movie. So her singing was kind of like, oh, this feels very like a pop, like she's hitting the note,
Right.
she's got the key, but that's basically all we get here. You know what I mean? And Renee Rapp singing World Burn is like my favorite song. It's my favorite like 11 o'clock song out of new musicals. But the movie version of it was not, it didn't compare to the musical version. And I was just sitting here like, I'm listening to this in an Adobe Cinema with some of the best speakers to ever be in a cinema. And y'all are serving me this. Like I can't accept this. I want my $20 back, actually.
Right.
Because this is not
I
good.
I feel like a lot of movie musicals these days are plagued by directors who hate musicals.
Yes.
And that's why, because like back in the golden age of cinema, there were so many movie musicals that were like better than their stage adaptations.
Yeah.
Like it feels like we're in a period where people are really uncomfortable with the format. And it's like, well, then don't direct a musical, because there are
Please.
directors who are great at directing musicals.
Yeah.
Like we just need more. We need other talent to have access
Mm-hmm.
to these directing positions, these roles.
Yeah, that's true. And I also am like a huge advocate for just like more. I'm a huge advocate for musicals to just be accessible to people. And I
Right.
remember it was a holiday season last year where they were showing a recording of the stage production of Waitress, the musical written by Sarah Bareilles. And I
Hmm.
loved that. I loved watching it because I loved the musical and I loved that I got to see it on the big screen. And because it's a stage recording, obviously there are some scenes that were shot without the audience to get like close-ups of like the actors' faces and stuff, which is fine. And they also did it with Hamilton too, but they put on Disney Plus. But I feel
Right.
like we could do that with musicals instead of doing these movie musicals, because you have
Yeah.
like these huge budgets, you have like these big actors, these way too long, way too complicated, way too costly marketing campaigns, and these long
Mhm.
ass like press runs, which like nothing against it. I love a press run. I love the Vanity Fair video, like how well do you know your co-star? I love the BuzzFeed quizzes. I love the BuzzFeed puppies. All that stuff is great. Like the Google autocomplete interview, I love that. But we could all pack that in nice and tight if we just do a recording. Like we ain't gotta do
Right.
all the rigmarole.
I do really like pro shots. I think in the past, a lot of like Broadway production companies feared that pro shots would mean that fewer people would actually go out to see shows live. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that like Hamilton is a great example of why that isn't true.
Yeah.
Like Hamilton has been touring now for what, 7 years, and
Yep.
it's still impossible to get a goddamn seat. Like it's impossible to go see it on Broadway. It's impossible to go see the tour. And it's been on Disney Plus for what, like 4 or 5 years now. So I think I hope that there will be more pro shots, because yeah, I agree with you. Like I think like just giving more people the opportunity to just see the stage show as it's intended to be, because not everything works as a movie musical.
Yeah.
Um, and then doing the production for my like S tier movie musical is Chicago, because they did something different with it. Rob
Mm-hmm.
Marshall did something different with it than you would get if you went to go see the stage production. And I think the transition from the scenes that are supposed to be like real life into like the scenes that are on the stage was really clever.
Mm-hmm.
I think that kind of like shifting diegesis you've got through the entire film. And I thought that is a fucking great example of like something that you can only get through like a movie musical. But then something like Les Mis, I don't think was as good. Like,
Yeah.
I'd rather see a pro shot of the musical.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you. I mean, I think I adored Les Mis just because like I didn't know what the musical was until I
Mhm.
went to see it and I loved it. And I also love Anne Hathaway. I think she's amazing,
It
and
was.
yeah, she was really good. And I really do hope that in the future we do get more pro shots of Broadway musicals, and I'd like for them to be like readily available to the public to watch, because I feel like if there's more access to musicals and people see like the variety of musicals that are available to them and how great they are, they realize that musicals are phenomenal. Like musicals, not every musical is Grease, not every musical is
Yeah,
Hairspray. You know,
it's such a
musicals are,
big genre.
yes, there's so many different like kinds of musicals you can love and you can admire and love. Like people were losing their mind over Hamilton, and
Right.
it's not like that was the first time that a story was told in a different way with a diverse
Mhm.
cast with amazing music. It's not the first musical that has employed all of those elements into their production, but it was the most popular.
Right.
So hopefully,
Right.
hopefully we
Yeah.
see that. Yes.
Yeah. People who don't like musicals, I feel like, aren't super familiar with the genre because it's such a big genre. It is like saying I don't like horror. And it's like, well, you can even like not like most horror, but
Yeah.
like horror is such a big genre. There's
Right.
and there's so many like little like mini genres where they're in. Like so it's too you can't just like write it off as all the same thing. You're right. Like not every musical is Grease, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's so great that we're getting into horror because that is, the
No.
genre. That's the genre of the film we're talking about today, The Substance. For those who don't know, The Substance is a new body horror that's directed by Coralie Fargett. And it is a film following this actress by the name of Elizabeth Sparkle. She is played by Demi Moore, and she was this very famous, very well known actress who was adored and admired throughout her career. And now she is kind of like an aerobics TV star who does like workout shows on television. And following her doing these like aerobics kind of like workout tapes, she is sued, let go from her job, from her production company due to aging out of her position. And, as she is upset and sad from the loss of her job and her dwindling career, she is approached by a medical assistant after she gets into a terrible car accident about something called the substance, which is something that changed his life. And she at first admonishes it, forgets about it, doesn't want to use it, but then she decides to utilize this black market drug to, take hold of her life and, hope to create something new in her life. And this black market drug creates a younger version of herself. And things start to ensue. And so that's basically like the synopsis of The Substance for you all. It's something that's been pretty popular and talked about a lot on Letterboxd, a lot on TikTok, a lot on Twitter. And with many popular films that have feminist themes behind it, of course, there are people who have been having a lot of discourse around it and not really understanding the point of the film, or not, I guess, like the analysis of it is not something that, it feels very surface level. You know what I mean? A lot of times when people watch, these kind of movies. So we're going to kind of dive into it and give our thoughts. And Hoots, I was just interested to see, like, what were your initial thoughts for The Substance? Like, how did you hear about it? What did you think about first watch? And, like, what really stuck out to you from this film?
Um, I think I probably first heard about it like on Twitter, like on film Twitter or something. And I was super interested because I had heard that it was a horror film that
Uh
had
huh.
won best screenplay at Cannes.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, well, that's cool. Like a genre film winning best screenplay is interesting. So I was super interested in it for that. And then I went to go see it with a friend of mine. It must have been like either opening weekend or like very soon around there. So we went to see it in theaters, and it was a packed theater. Like there was not a seat in the house. And I just watched it now for the second time today before this episode. And let me tell you, watching it in a packed theater is a very different experience. It was wild. For the first maybe third of the movie, you could hear like a pin drop, in the theater. And then by the end, the theater was like rioting. Like people were screaming, people were talking back at the theater. It was like, I have not been in that rowdy of a theater, I think, since I saw Get Out. Like,
Okay.
it's like people were like losing our minds, like all of us. And it was incredible. Like, I 10 out of 10. I think that we should re-release it like before award season in theaters, because I think experiencing it like with a group of people is amazing, especially like a group of people who'd never seen it before. Like, I guess nobody really knew what to expect. And for people who haven't seen it, it is gross. It is it is like The Fly meets Death Becomes Her. Like, it's disgusting and campy and not subtle at all. and really, like, you can't watch it while eating. It's nasty.
I love that you pointed out that it's like The Fly, because there's a very clear, like, kind of shot with the fly swimming in the whiskey in the movie, which is clearly like an homage to that film. And I remember, like, during my research, there was this clip I saw where someone kind of compares the shots of this film to like different Kubrick films, and how like the imagery of like her like with her head in the shower and like the long hallway that's red, and also like the red bathroom are shots that are similar to like Kubrick films. And I have
The
to agree
carpet
with.
almost looks exactly like The Shining. Like, that was
Yes,
clearly intentional. They made the carpet like a reference to The Shining.
absolutely, absolutely. And I, one thing that you said that stuck out to me was that like you didn't know what to expect going into this film. That's something that I love about a lot of independent movies, is when it's something that's very topical. People are talking about it a lot. People really enjoy it. I didn't know anything about the movie besides the fact that like Demi Moore turned into Margaret Qualley. So in my mind, I was thinking like, oh, she's literally turning into Margaret Qualley, like she's gonna be young. Because the picture of Margaret Qualley like smiling with her mouth like completely clamped shut,
Right.
and like the camera way too close to her face, that kept showing up on my timeline. And I was
The
like,
meme now. Yeah.
yeah. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So when I went to watch the movie, I didn't know what to expect. Like in my mind, I was like, oh, Demi Moore's gonna turn to Margaret Qualley, and she's gonna talk about, and she's gonna experience what it's like to be young again. But that is not at all what happens. So
Right.
if you're listening to this, guys, there are going to be spoilers. Just want to let you know right off the bat. So Demi Moore's character Elizabeth, she gets the drug, which is the substance, and basically she gets like this, box. She has to go to this abandoned alley to get the box. It's so funny where she's like walking down the street with this big orange coat, like she's
Yeah.
trying to like seem inconspicuous. It's like, girl, you are orange. Like,
Yeah.
we
You
can
got to take
all
off the
see.
coat, girly.
But I love the color. I love the color in this film. It's so
Oh my
gorgeous.
gosh. It's so much.
Yes.
That's one of the things about it that, like, I know a lot of people's reaction to it has been like, it also feels very French, because the
Mm.
French director. And I think the color is part of that. Like, the stark colors almost kind of reminded me of like Umbrellas of Cherbourg or something. Like,
Mm-hmm.
kind of over the and thank God color is missing from so many movies nowadays. Like, and this movie was not afraid to use color.
Yes. And I love that. I love seeing like the bright, vibrant colors, because
Ooh,
oftentimes whenever in a horror movie things are more dull, they always make blood the thing that stands out the most, which is kind of
right.
like, okay, we get it. Like murder, gore. But like to already have that color like popping in the screen, when the blood is added, it's just kind of like part of like the color grading in the film. So it's not the one thing that's meant to stand out. It's one thing that's meant to like kind of blend in to all the other elements, which I liked. And I also love that like the substance is like brat green.
Yeah.
I was like, this is crazy. Like, I was watching it, I was like, yeah, Charlie XCX would be someone's younger self. Like,
How did they know?
it's insane because she said that she wrote this film 5 years ago, but
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy to see how topical and like how relevant it is to today,
Right.
which I enjoyed. And I'm not gonna lie, when she first injects the substance into her, I had no idea what was going on. So obviously I'm watching, and then I soon realized like when she is on the floor writhing, I'm like, Oh my god, I'm about to see something I don't like. And of course, I had to like take off my headphones. I had to like look through my fingers because I can't do gore. Like, I like horror, but like gore is too much. And so when her back was like,
Hmm.
like that, I was like, oh, that's why her back is like that on the poster. Oh, that's something crazy.
She
And
hatched
then,
out of herself like a
oh
shell.
my god. Not
Yeah.
hatched, but
So
yeah.
nasty. So nasty.
So
And it only
nasty.
gets nastier.
Oh yeah, yeah. When she has to like sew herself back up, I'm like, oh Lord, move forward, please. But I think that, you remember the scene with Dennis Quaid eating those shrimps at the
Yeah.
table.
Also one of the grossest scenes.
When I
Really.
saw, when I
Oof.
saw that scene and he like the zoom in on his mouth, the mouth sound, how dirty the table was. That is kind of like the initial thought put into your mind as if you were like, this movie is gross. I'm
Yeah.
showing you how this man eats. So I'm letting you know this is about to be disgusting. You know?
Awful. This
Yes.
is like I'm not very squeamish.
Mm-hmm.
Um but I was like I was rewatching it today, like while I was like making my lunch and stuff. And I had to, once my lunch was done, I had to pause the movie and be like,
Yes.
okay, I'm not gonna watch it while I'm eating. And I have to come back to it afterwards because it's literally something that like I can't have any, especially anything wet, like
Oh yeah.
while I'm watching it. I have to just be like, okay, I'm gonna stop it for now and I'll come back to it a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
After I've digested a little bit, because it really is like I think even more disgusting than like David Cronenberg, which like there's like all of the special effects are definitely references to like Cronenberg monsters. But
Mm-hmm.
I think this one's even grosser and wetter, and it's so wet. There's so much wetness.
I think one thing that I enjoy in seeing the rise of like a lot of horror films with feminist narratives is that in horror there is gore, there's death. You're not gonna hold back from it. And I enjoy seeing films like Ready or Not. I enjoy seeing like the Amazon Prime show Dead Ringers, which is obviously a remake of the Cronenberg film Dead Ringers with Jeremy Irons, and then The Substance. Like seeing these female protagonists in roles where they are empowered and they are, strong, but they like take hold of like the gory, disgusting, like bloody sides of like, killing an entire family that try to wipe you out, or like you open a clinic with your twin sister and try to like revitalize the way that women give birth, and then now you try to like reawaken your youthful side of yourself and like understanding like the kind of insecurities you have about your body that have kind of been instilled in you your whole life and mainly in your career. Seeing all these like different narratives be taken hold of and not being scared to be gross and gory and disgusting and like pushing that envelope in a way that's not seen as feminine and not seen as dainty, but
Right.
like not
Yeah.
caring, just doing it anyways. I love seeing
Yeah.
that because it's a lot of fun to watch. And although like I am someone who's very squeamish, I'm glad that in The Substance, Caroline or Coralie, she does not hold back when it
No.
comes to the gore. She is like, no, no, no. Let's zoom in. Let's take our time with this because
Right.
everybody's gonna feel uncomfortable right now because that is the point of this movie. Like, I will not spare you any details. Okay, the movie is 2 hours and 20 minutes, so there's a lot to get through. Yeah, but I really enjoyed that.
Right. The climax is so gory and so
Oh,
disgusting. And like also like clearly a reference to Carrie. Like there's lots of like
oh,
references to other horror films. But it's like, yeah, she doesn't even remotely hold back. And like I said, she's not trying to be subtle. Like there's
mm-hmm.
no moment where she's trying to be subtle about like the message of the film or
Yeah, I
anything.
feel like that was interesting to me when I was watching the movie because when I saw a lot of discourse online with people talking about the movie, I feel like people were not getting it, which didn't make sense to me because nothing in this film is meant to be hidden. And that's one thing that I've seen in like newer films. Oftentimes writers and directors, they want to try and outsmart the audience. They want to try and add a lot of layers and
Not this.
nuance. sometimes you don't need layers of nuance. Sometimes it's good to be open and honest and subtle. Sometimes it's good to push the envelope if you're doing it in a tasteful way to the point of the film. Like sometimes gore can be a little too much, but the gore and the substance makes sense because like it's body horror and you're talking about women's
Yeah.
bodies. And so a lot of times the things that people do to their bodies to feel beautiful or to feel like comfortable in their own skin, it can be gross. It can be nasty. But that's what people do so that they feel better about themselves. And I like that, this film, it embraces it. It embraces the gore. So whenever I see takes of people like not really getting certain parts of the film, I don't. I sometimes I sit down and I'm like, did we watch the same movie? Because
That's wild. What takes have you seen?
so there are a lot. One that stood out to me was that a lot of people didn't think that Demi Moore was the right actress for this movie because they felt like, oh, she's too pretty. Like they should have casted someone who is not as conventionally attractive. But I feel like Demi Moore fits because she was very well known in the 90s, I believe. She was a very well known actress. She was a very high paid actress at a certain point. And then her career she took a break like 5 or 6 years. She took a break to raise her kids, and then she came back into acting, and she didn't have a lot of like strong roles after coming back to acting, but she was back into acting and taking on roles. So I feel like Demi Moore fits because like her career in this film is similar to Jane Fonda's, where like she had a really strong
Yeah,
career, and then later on she started doing like the fitness and the workout tapes as well. And Jane Fonda, she's back in the game. She's making like her fun little movies with
I love Jane Fonda.
all like with Sally Field and with Lily. Oh my gosh, I always forget her last name. But like, like they are all making movies together and having fun with
Right.
it. And I think that people seeing Demi Moore as like the wrong actress for the role, it kind
But
of
her beauty is the point. Like
yeah.
the point is you're supposed to look at her and be like, "Oh my God, she's got no-" like even though she's getting older,
Hmm.
like she by the way, Demi Moore looks amazing in this, which
Oh
is also
yeah.
not the point, but
Oh
like you get
yes.
to see a whole lot of Demi Moore's body and ass. And you're like, oh my God, she's 61 years old and she's playing a 50-year-old. And she's got better skin than a lot of 40-year-olds that I know. And that's the point. That
Hmm.
is the point, is that this like self-destructive body dysmorphia, especially in these like industries that place such an emphasis on beauty,
Hmm.
come for even the most beautiful people in the world.
Yeah, and I think
That's the
that
point.
yes, and I remember seeing her like on when she's recording the like workout videotapes and she's like in the blue jumpsuit, she's doing her thing. I'm
Yeah,
like, oh girl, you better work it. But then when you see
she
her in
looks
her
amazing.
bathroom, you could tell like the lighting has changed significantly because you could
Right.
kind of see like the sunspots and like the wrinkles. And even then I'm like, girl, you still look good. I don't know what you looking at, like you still
Again,
got it.
skin better than a lot of 40-year-olds I know. And
Yes.
IRL Demi Moore is 61 years old.
Yeah, like
Her
you.
character is supposed to be 50.
Yes, and you look good, but I feel like Margaret Qualley in this role makes so much sense because Margaret Qualley is kind of like the hot new thing in Hollywood. She has had a lot of new interesting roles. She was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She did really well in Made on Netflix. She is has been in a lot of very interesting roles, and I do admire the roles that she takes because they're never something that's uh it's never something that's very stereotypical. Like, you expect, a new actress to like be in like an action thriller and then in a romance and then in something else. But she's always taken roles that do show her, do flex her like skills, her acting
Hmm.
skills. Like she was in this film called Sanctuary, which was like an indie film that not a lot of people watched, where she plays a dominatrix and her sub is trying to break up with her. And I did watch the movie and I feel like it was like a 7 out of 10. But I was watching it, I was like, you know what? This is a fun ride. This is a fun little romp. You know what, girl? I see what you're doing. So
Right.
seeing her in The Substance, I feel like made sense because she even spoke in interviews how like her body does not look like that. Like they had to kind of like they gave her fake boobs for like
I
the
saw
workout
that.
scenes.
I only saw that the second time around. I saw it's in the credits. Like
Yeah.
it's Sue's breasts SFX. There was an entire team, which does make me feel better because when I first saw the movie, I was like, there's no way she has that face and that body. Like, come on.
It was, I remember watching, and of course, like the scenes where she's doing like the pump it up. Girl, it's very clear nobody's doing
Oh
them
my God.
workouts.
It's
Nobody's doing them workouts, girl. What are we doing
no.
here? Only you can bend like that. All right, let's keep it real. Let's do a little bit of squats. You know, let's do some toe touches. You know what I mean? But
Right.
we don't have to pump it up like that.
And then she also plays the Monstro Eliza Sue. She plays the monster at the end too, which
Yeah,
she's so good. She's really, really good in this movie.
I do. I am curious. Do you think that Sue and Elizabeth have a shared conscience in the film?
I think so. So
Hmm.
I've seen people, men, bitching about this.
Yeah.
That like, oh, it doesn't make sense because Elizabeth doesn't remember anything. So why would she choose to do this? I My interpretation from watching it was kind of that they both, basically when whoever is asleep kind of like experiences what the waking person experiences sort of as a dream. So you're not, things are dreamlike. You're not entirely sure of what's going on and you're not in control. And also like it's ultimately like kind of a fairy tale. So like I don't think that it has to be perfectly like logical, I think it's something that you should ingest a little bit more psychologically than logically, especially when it comes to I guess to talk about it, when it comes to things like body dysmorphia and
Hmm.
stuff. Like there is like this like sometimes psychological, uh you know you are one with your eating disorder, but you
Yeah.
are a separate thing from it. And there's a like the scene towards the end where Elizabeth terminates Sue, and then immediately is like, I need to bring you back. This idea of like the thing that is like absolutely destroying you, and like she says like, I need you. The feeling like you need that is like very potent for people who've struggled with body dysmorphia or eating disorders or that kind of thing. It's very familiar.
Hmm.
And so I think like, yes, I do think that they have each other's memories, but even if that's not how it's meant to be uh, interpreted, I don't think it matters that it doesn't make complete like logical sense.
Hmm.
I think it's something that you're meant to watch, kind of like a fairy tale or something.
Yeah, it's really meant to be like a satire almost. And I think that a lot of times, I think that the people who are trying to nitpick certain things about the film and they don't see it as logical don't truly empathize with what Elizabeth is going through, because
Right.
it's not like, girl, it's not like an actual horror movie. Like, I've seen people have like strong criticisms. Some criticisms that I agree with are that like we don't know a lot about Elizabeth. Like, we don't know her childhood. We don't know how she got to be this way. And I feel like,
Right.
yes, that makes sense, but like in this movie we're experiencing things in a certain time frame, so I think it's fine if we just see things in that time frame. And there have been people who have also said that they don't see, like, one criticism that I personally had was how she is now this younger self. She is now this like kind of like, Sue. And in my head I'm like, okay, but we're gonna go back to that same job? Like, we don't
Right.
wanna do
Instead of
something.
becoming an actor again.
Yeah.
um I mean, I don't want to know, like, they made like a very clear choice, like not to give most of the characters last names, or in many cases even first names.
Yeah.
The shows are just called the morning show and the New Year's show. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's very clearly meant to be kind of like stock characters in stock situations, which again is like why I say it kind of feels like a fairy tale, like that, and the like 7-day limit.
Mm-hmm.
It feels very Cinderella. And so I personally don't feel like it's a flaw that we don't know much about Elizabeth or really anybody. I think that that's not like how this is meant to be taken in. I don't know. Uh,
Yeah, I agree
and
with you.
yeah,
I feel like a lot of it is metaphor. Like
yeah,
even with Sue, Sue is meant to be the representation of like us as young people, how like there are so many things that we do when we're young that are gonna affect us when we're older, but we don't think about it or consider it now because it feels like that's such like a long time away. Like listening to loud music or eating whatever you want or staying up late, drinking, like partying hard, doing drugs, like those kind of things. You do it in the moment because it's fun and it brings you like relief, and you don't consider the long-term effects that it has on your body. And so with
right.
Elizabeth kind of like being in the bathroom, kind of like hidden away. And I also have to say, like, I did find it funny how she built a whole chamber in her bathroom. Like, girl, there are no power tools in that house. I know that for sure. The only power tool she has is like a little gem roller for your face. Like, obviously, like I don't believe you built like a whole wall, but like
Right.
it's a
She
film.
had to order on Amazon Prime.
Exactly. But like it's a movie. Like, you're not meant to like dig too deeply into it. And I think one thing that let me know, because when I was watching the movie and I saw Sue and Elizabeth, I was just kind of like, I didn't really feel like they were a shared consciousness until she did the whole like control yourself
Right.
dialogue where it switches from Elizabeth to Sue. And I love the way Sue said, control yourself. Like, girl, get a hold of yourself. What's happening? Because, I mean, I would feel the same way. I'm not gonna lie. Like, if I woke up and then like the house is full of like chicken bones, like all of this stuff, it's like, what's going on? Because Sue is like working out, taking care of herself, and Elizabeth obviously like. I agree with what you're saying that she does experience something that Sue is feeling because throughout the week that she is like awake, she doesn't really do much. She just kind of like watches TV. She's just kind of like hanging around because like why would I do anything? I could just live through Sue and
Just
experience
clock
what
watching. Yeah.
yeah, like just experience what she experiences for a week. Like that'll be fine.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I also feel like it was obvious that Sue was going to extend the 7-day period,
From the
obviously.
second she unopens that package and reads the instructions, you're like, oh, I know where this is going, and
Yeah.
there's no way to stop it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was clear because whenever they
Yeah.
give them a time frame or anything like that, like this is a hard deadline. Stick to it.
Hmm.
It was just like, nah, she's gonna push it because she
It's
wants to have
feeding those
fun.
gremlins. It's feeding those gremlins after midnight.
Yeah, gremlin. and the thing is, is like, I guess that in the film, I don't know if I know that Sue isn't meant to be the villain. Like the villain is obviously like Dennis Quaid's character, who was like
Right.
appropriately named
And
Harvey
what he
for no
represents.
reason
Yeah.
whatsoever.
The
But
villain is like every man in the movie.
oh yeah. I also had a question for you because a lot of people I saw online felt bad for Fred, that random guy from her high
Yeah, that
school
she
that ran
stood
into
up.
her. Yeah.
Yeah. He was I liked the inclusion of him because he was the closest to like a nice person. And also, oh God, that like scene where she's constantly going back and redoing her makeup and then fucking
Whew.
her makeup up and pulling like basically standing him up.
Mm-hmm.
That hits hard. Um, but yeah, I mean he seems fine. And but still I don't know, his interest in her still seems kind of shallow, you
Mm-hmm.
know? He's I guess of all the men in the movie, he's not villainous.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish that she had gone out on her date with him. I think she would have been a lot happier if she had. But he's intentionally, I think, um, he never says anything about like who she is as a person, right?
Mm-hmm.
He just says you're as pretty as I remember you being. And it's wonderful that he still finds her beautiful, but um, I I think her beauty is still centered in his relationship to her, you know?
Yeah, and I had written it in the notes for like the podcast outline, but I remember just watching that scene with Fred and her standing him up, and in the back of my mind, I was like, "Oh, I feel a little bit bad for Fred." But then I thought about like a scene where like, what if she went on the date with him? And what if she
Right.
talked to him? And he probably would have been very nice and very tender and like very like kind. But he is also someone who knew her from her past and is now kind of transfixed by like this star that she's become. So how
Right.
likely is it that he is going to try to get to know her and not just be transfixed by her star power and her fame and the fact that him, little old Fred, is going on a date with like Lizzie, the prettiest girl in the world. You know what I mean? And if she brings up anything about her feeling insecure about her body or her looks, he'll be like, "Oh no, 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 you're still so pretty, still gorgeous." And like men love to drop something really casually that is so stupid. He'll say something like, "Oh, you're so gorgeous for your age." It's like,
Mm.
mm, thanks,
Yeah.
Fred. Thanks for that.
Even nice men, even I think I like his inclusion in the movie because even kind men are or nice men are, a part of this like kind of
Yeah,
system.
because even though he's trying to be the good guy, he doesn't really get it. He doesn't really understand, and it kind of reminds me of Bo Burnham's character in Promising Young Woman, where he's the
Right.
love interest. He's so nice. He's a pediatrician. He's so like harmless, and I love that Bo Burnham plays that character as well
Right.
because later in the movie you find out that he's not that nice of a guy, and it's
Yeah.
not just that you could be nice and you can have all of these outside characteristics that make you seem like the good guy. Like, who are you?
Right.
Like, what is your character?
It's
How do your
shallow. Yeah.
actions speak? Exactly. Exactly. And
A
it
lot of
also,
men are really invested in the idea of them being a good guy, which I mean was kind of the point of Promising Young Woman, right? Is
mm,
like that's uh how she kills their egos is she finds men who are very invested in the idea of being a good guy
mm,
who still are gonna like take her home and try to get her drunk and rape her.
mm-hmm.
um but
Yeah.
yeah and yeah, like I think you're right. It's a very similar kind of like stock character of the guy who's like maybe a little bit more convincing in the good guy act, who still is participating in these oppressive systems.
Mm-hmm. And I think that in watching the film, I realized that like Sue is not really like the villain in the film. She does
Mm-mm.
feel like the second half of Elizabeth, where like
Yeah.
Elizabeth is like this very, it's obviously like the name for like an older woman, a more mature woman, and Sue is like short, easy to remember, cute. And like all these men are like fawning over her. And she likes the attention, she likes the admiration. And she sees Elizabeth as like an obstacle, someone who's like kind of getting in her way. Even though like multiple times when I was watching this movie, I was like, girl, she is the reason why you are here. She is your
Right.
mother. You came out of her, girl. Like you would not be here
Yeah.
without her. Like that's not. It doesn't work like that. So when she kind of begins kind of pushing the boundaries, I had to like kind of remind myself that like Sue is like a lot of young women nowadays who think about how to stay young and start using anti-aging products when they turn 20 and think that their life is over by 30 and have like their most important goal in life is to seem desirable in the eyes of men and how to please men. And she has chosen this role where she is a workout, instructor on TV, but it is because of her looks. It's because her boobs are in the right place. It's because she is the hot young thing, and like all these men are fawning over her. Like, could she have gone into acting? Could she have started her own production company? Sure, but she kind of falls back into like that trap of like winning the admiration of all these people that Sue lost over the years. Like even the flowers that they sent her, they say in the note, you were amazing. Like, the camera zooming into you, were amazing. Like, y'all see
Right.
that? Y'all pick up on that? Okay. And they bring it back to the flowers before the New Year's show. Like, you are amazing. You are a star. Like, in the present day. And seeing, like, the hallway where it was full of posters of all of the shows she did for that network for so many
Right.
years. And then starting off with Sue as like the new beginning, their new origin, their new star. You know, she wants that attention. And it's not inherently a bad thing, because when you're young, you want to take care of your youth, your vitality. You want to take advantage of that while you can, because you're not going to be young forever. And sometimes that includes stepping on the toes of people who came before you, because you know, we've seen it with like Mariah and Ariana. We see it with many other like big stars where they feel like they have to kind of like put someone else down in order to lift themselves up. Like, I don't know if you know this, but there's a song called Pretty Girl Rock. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Okay, so there's a song called Pretty Girl Rock. It was really popular, I think maybe like 2012, like that era of music. And it was sung by this woman named Carrie Hilson. And during that time, Beyonce had been approaching 30, or she was 30 around that time. And so a lot of music producers had this bright idea to try and get other female singers to put Beyonce down. They tried to do it with Tinashe when she first came on the scene. They tried to get Rihanna to do it. They tried to get a lot of black singers to do it. Carrie Hilson was the genius who thought, oh yeah, I can say that I'm better than Beyonce. I can say I'm the next Beyonce. So she sits on a radio show, and of course people rightfully admonish her, put her down, and she is kind of like kicked out of the music industry. Like, Pretty Girl Rock is the only song she ever wrote that ever made the charts, that ever made to the radio, and the girl is gone. So then much later in her career, she does another interview saying that like she was told by her producers and people in the industry to put down Beyonce, say like, you can sing better than Beyonce, you can write better than Beyonce, say like Pretty Girl Rock is like, say whatever it is you want to say, girl, and we'll back you up. We got you. But they basically threw her under the bus, and the
Right.
Beehive came for her, and then other people in the industry came for her, and that's basically what happened, you know, because that's how the industry is, because they're always looking for the next thing. They're looking for the next Mariah, the next Michael, the next Beyonce, the next Whitney. They always want to replace the legend, even though you can't do that because they're
Right.
legends for a reason. And even though
Right.
like young people are talented and like they're great, the purpose is not to replace those who came before you. The purpose is like rise to your own occasion. But of course, Sue did not get that memo. She talks down to Elizabeth in that interview, despite the fact that like, girl, she is in your bathroom. Like,
Right.
what are you doing? You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's not subtle.
Oh,
And yeah, it's a good I think it's like a fun depiction of like self-hatred um
do you think
on
that?
both ends.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if you think that Elizabeth should have stopped the experiment at some point.
Um, I mean, she should have never done it to begin with.
Hmm.
uh, but yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. I don't know. It's because it's like a fairy tale, because it's like a Greek tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say should have done anything, because it's fun to watch the wheels come off of this, speeding
Train
train.
wreck. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I do have to
it's
say,
a
I
lot
feel
of
like
fun.
it is fun. And I think when she got just like the finger and it
Mhm.
was like all crooked and gross, you know, I think that when she first called the substance, they were like, "Do you want to stop? Like, do you want to like stop this?"
Right.
In my mind, I probably been like, "Yeah, you know what? We're good because I still got this body and I could put a glove on.
Right.
You know,
That
that's
was
not."
her only off ramp.
You know, like after a while, when her hair starts falling out and like her leg is start crickety and like her knee is messed up, you
Awful
know,
scene.
yeah. And I did see a lot of interesting points people are making where the movie is meant to be kind of like critique on how we look at aging and beauty standards and stuff like that. But the camera is so harsh in so many angles when she starts aging and when she has these defects in her body. And I think that a lot of people felt like the movie was like going back on its messaging. And it's not that it's going back, but I feel like it's pointing out that the things that people do to their bodies to kind of fit these beauty standards down the line, you either need to keep up with this or it's going to like mess your body up in so many different ways, whether it's Botox, whether it's hair plugs, whether it's the ever popular BBL trend or like Ozempic. Like a lot of the things that you're doing so you can look a certain way and attain a certain body, in some way or another, you either have to keep it up, maintain it, or you have to revert back to how you look. And that may cost more money than what it took for you to look that way in the first place. So you really have to like sit down with yourself and be like, is this worth it? Is this something I want to do? Because like, even as you said, like, you don't think she should have took the substance in the first place. And one of the most popular reviews on Letterboxd is like, I would still take the substance. Like someone just be like, I would take it anyways. Because like,
I would take the substance. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I think to your point about like, oh, is the movie kind of like undermining its own message by showing her looking so gross as she gets older?
Mm-hmm.
I would push back on that by saying like a lot of those scenes, like there's a lot of use of like fisheye lenses and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that is supposed to represent how like distorted her self-image is. And so like, yes, it is a criticism of Hollywood beauty standards. Yes, it is a criticism of the way we refuse to let women age. We think that they're dead after 30. But also it is a pretty stark depiction of struggling with your own sense of self-worth and your own body image. And I think that her view of herself as Elizabeth is intentionally skewed. Like we're seeing her skewed point of view,
Mm-hmm.
and her addiction to having Sue, even though Sue is ruining her, is destroying her body,
Mm-hmm.
is part of that, like skewed self-image. So I don't think that it like undermines the point. I get where people are coming from with that, but I really do think that like all of the like harsh angles and the fisheye lenses and stuff are supposed to be telling us that we're kind of dealing with like an unreliable protagonist here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I do think that also this movie makes so much sense because it's interesting to me to see people say that Demi Moore is the wrong actress for the role, because so many times I see on the internet people putting before and after pictures of singers and actresses when they first start out and then they start getting popular, like pointing out
Right.
like work they've gone and done and stuff like that. And like me personally, like my personal opinion, I'm not a fan of plastic surgery in any sense, but if you get it, I don't care. You know,
Right.
like you can, if your nose looks different from the nose you had 2 years ago, okay. And what about
Yeah.
it? What
Are
does
you
that have to do
happier
with it?
now?
Yeah, like I don't care at the end of the day. But watching this movie has made me like understand, because I can understand why you want to change certain things about yourself and your body and like how you look, because you have this like outside pressure by how other people look and how you're different from other people and how there are certain features that other people have that you feel like would look good on yourself, so you kind of want to see what that looks like. And to see it in a film where like it's so grotesque and like so gory, but
Yeah.
you see like the little sliver of happiness that she has in your mind, you may think, oh, I'm gonna do differently. Oh, I'm gonna adhere to the 7 days. And like you don't really know if you would adhere to the 7 days if you're being honest, because that was something that seems so simple and so easy for her, but she got so caught up in being young and vivacious that like it kind of slipped through her fingers in a way. And I think that this movie came at the right time, because I find it very, very annoying when people pick apart people's bodies. You know, when Beyonce went on tour for during Renaissance, people were staring at her legs, her body, her arms, her butt, every outfit she wore, and they were like, where does she get work done? Where does she get work done? And in my mind, it's like, why do you care about this? Like, why is that the fixture? Why is it the pinpoint? This is a woman who is performing all around the world. Like, y'all need to be worried less about like how her ass looks and certain outfits. You need to be listening to the music, because this is what we're here for, the music. You know what I mean?
That's so crazy to me that people think Beyonce's got like I think a lot of people have gotten work done, but I actually don't think Beyonce's gotten that much work done. I think she
Yeah.
just works out a lot, right?
Yes, and it's very clear from
She's
like
always had thick thighs, like
it's part of, it's literally like that's how her body looks. You know,
yeah,
like if you've watched her through the years as I have as a Beyonce fan, like her body has looked several different ways in several different times in her life, because she's had children, she's worked
right,
out, she's had kids again, like different things happen, like even with Beyonce, like no, even with Rihanna, because she's been having babies. You know, she's been
right,
having babies, and people have so many things to say about like her double chin, how she looked at the Super Bowl. Like, she's on that stage singing and dancing. All right,
right.
there have been plenty of men at the Super Bowl who just stand on that stage and they don't do anything else. Y'all had nothing to say about Maroon 5. I don't hear anything about Rihanna. I don't hear about anything about Lady Gaga, because people had so many things to say about Lady Gaga when she was doing the Super Bowl, and they were like, "Oh, she needed to lose a couple pounds." Like, Lady Gaga is thin, 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 thin. Stephanie is thin.
Always
All
has
right,
been.
y'all have
Like,
you have no lip. You have no room, no space. Like, please.
yeah, please stop picking apart people.
Mm-hmm.
Just for the love of God. We don't need to return to the early 2000s, and I really feel like we are. I feel like that it's just around the corner.
Yeah, and the thing is that like it's not even subtle, because
No.
so
Much
many.
like this movie.
I think that this movie is such a smart film, and I think because it's something that can be so topical, it's something that is so relatable to like the Ozempic craze that's going on. It
Right.
may do well in award season, or it might get shut out, because there may be some people who are a little butthurt by the movie, because
I really hope it does well. Like, it would just be so cool to see. Like, I love it when like genre films get lots of nominations. I don't think it'll
mm-hmm,
get nominated for Best Picture, but it might get nominated for Best Screenplay again.
it should.
And I really hope that Demi gets nominated. I think her performance is wonderful in this. I think she gets to have like the best of both worlds as well, where like the very beginning of the film, she has like all those like very still, subtle moments. And then towards the end, she's like a cackling witch. And
Yeah.
I just love her so much. I think she's wonderful in this.
And you know, there are a lot of times where the Oscars will nominate an actress just because like she's been an actress for so long, people know her,
Right.
she's a name, she's like a household name, but for some reason she has just never gotten this close to getting an Oscar. And this film was like the one film that like kind of gets her close to there.
Has
So I
she
feel
ever
like
won before? Let
I
me
think
look.
she has been nominated for an Oscar before, but because like this film has really like broken her out into the box office in like such a huge way, I know that she's going to get nomination for either an Academy Award, a SAG Award, or a Golden Globe. Like, she's absolutely getting a nomination for one of those films. I feel like a BAFTA is like also possible as well. I feel like that's
Probably
kind of like,
BAFTA.
I feel like that's a given.
It
That's
looks like
definitely
in the
gonna happen.
past she's been nominated for a Directors Guild, Critics' Choice, 3 Golden Globes, Primetime Emmys, and a SAG Award. But I don't think she's ever been nominated for an Academy Award. She's her nominations have their own Wikipedia page. Um, but yeah, I think that would be very cool if she at least got nominated.
Hmm.
Because her performance is so good, and I think you're right. I think she'll probably get nominated for a BAFTA, and I think she'll get nominated for SAG again.
Hmm.
I think the fact that it did well at Cannes will mean that like some of the more snooty industry types might nominate her, even though it's a genre performance.
Yeah. And I also think that with it doing so well in the box office, it's definitely going to push it as well, because it was made on a pretty small budget and was acquired by movie
Hey,
at
it made
12.5 million.
lots of
And
money.
it's made close to 70 million, and I think it's probably gone over that by now. So,
Nice.
yeah. And I'm very excited to kind of see like what's going to happen with awards season, because there are a lot of films that are up this year that I feel like maybe they should take a step back. And I feel like The Substance is definitely a film that breaks out of the horror genre, and it's kind
Right.
of like it utilizes horror in a way to like push its message and still existing within, horror. Cuz girl, when she had to pull that chicken leg out of her belly button, I was screaming.
Ugh. So it was, I think that was like the first point when I saw it in theaters where people started to like audibly react. Because again,
Mm,
at first it was like you could hear a pin drop. Even when she was like sewing herself back up,
mm,
people were just kind of like not sure what to make of anything. And I think it was the chicken leg where people started being like, "Whoa, what's
yeah,
going on?" And by the end, that whole theater was screaming.
yeah.
Like
I mean,
that big, like the big ending, like everybody was losing their minds.
oh, absolutely. I totally get it. I I also found it interesting, like her relationship with food, because
Right.
when we're watching the movie, like in the beginning scenes, you don't really see her eat anything. And I think that like that's something that I notice in films. Like I understand that like it's hard to film food in movies. Like
But this is intense.
oftentimes, yeah, unless the film or TV show is something where food is the center. Like in The Bear, Ao Edebri, yeah, Ao Edebri and Jeremy Allen,
So, yeah.
yeah,
Jeremy
not
Allen White, right?
Jeremy Allen
Not
White, not Jeremy Irons. I was supposed to say Jeremy Irons,
I know, I was just thinking the same thing.
but the two of them, they had to go to culinary school and learn how to cook, and like they
They did.
actually use like food and they actually eat food in the show because that's part of the show. It's like it's a food
Right.
show. But in other movies, I noticed like obviously they use prop food or they don't use real food because like eating those kind of salads, it doesn't really work. So when when I finally see her like cooking as she's watching Sue's interview, I'm watching and
Right.
I'm like, she hasn't eaten a lot in this movie. And I feel like that was something that I kind of noticed because I guess it's like something that is it's understated, but for a lot of like Hollywood or like actors and actresses, like eating is something that is like an afterthought more often than not when it comes to kind of like taking care of yourself or your body. Like it's not really something that you kind of like think about too often. So when she is like cooking and making food and like actually it looks like she's having fun, cooking, it's very clear that she is kind of indulging in the things that she had to restrict herself from to hold tight to the body that she wanted to, attain and keep tight and like sustain so that she could stay in like, the beauty standard of being an older woman, but still she still got it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Still right and tight in all the right places. So seeing her cook and then seeing the chicken leg come out was kind of like, this is very interesting and very strange, but also a lot of fun. And I'm
Yeah.
enjoying this. I'm enjoying this a little bit.
That's also very like the fact that Sue gets angry at her for like binging and stuff when she's on her week, like also feels like very, very like eating disorder brain kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's like you have these like binges that you feel like someone else is in control of,
Mm-hmm.
and then like having the nightmares about consuming food or like food coming out of you and that kind of thing is like
Mm-hmm.
very um I'm just gonna say it again, not subtle. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that there are a lot of times in the movie where there are kind of like hints there's a lot of foreshadowing in the film now that I think
right,
about it, because there's that one scene where she's making out with the guy with the motorcycle, which like, girl, come on. But meaningless hookups, they happen. But she's making out with the guy with the motorcycle and she like, takes the extra day of spinal fluid
right,
from Elizabeth, and then her back starts bursting open and her inside starts spilling out, and then she wakes up and she
right,
realizes it was just a dream. And I'm like, oh girl, that can't be good.
right.
We need to keep an eye on that one because that can't be good. But there are those little moments in the film when you're watching it and it's clear that like as they're connected, as they're one, as they're part of the matrix, you know, as the substance in a way is telling you like, hey, we gave you this, but don't push it. All right?
Right.
Like, we get it. This is your fantasy, but like, let's not step over the line. Let's not do too much here. Like, we got to keep things in order. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
like this isn't like not everybody knows about this, girl. Like, keep it nice, keep it tight. You know
Gotta
what I
follow
mean?
the rules. You
Gotta
can't feed
follow the
those. You
rules.
can't feed those gremlins after midnight.
Mm. Also, remember when that guy, that medical assistant, touched her and he had that weird mark on the back of his hand?
Uh
I was like, oh, oh
huh.
lordy. And I was kind of wondering, like, if homegirl Elizabeth has a crooked little finger, what's wrong with Sue? Because they didn't really show any imperfections on Sue, because her whole
Right.
body is like on display for her job. But you know, when the random bump comes out of her ass, and it's like, in my mind, I still was like, was that real? Like, did she actually pull chicken out of her stomach, or like, are we meant to think that was a dream? And I would like to believe it's real. Like, there was a
Okay.
strange bump coming out of her ass. You know, like, you know, they're, because the days are kind of like blending into each other, and like they're so
Right.
connected, where it's like, you guys are obviously like affecting one another by like what you're doing here. You
Yeah.
know what I
Right.
mean?
Your choices affect the other because you're the same person.
Yes. And I was also curious because, you know, there's a part where she, I don't know, I forget what it was that drove Sue to start filling those bottles with spinal fluid, but essentially, like, I was sitting there and I was like, how is it that Elizabeth is still alive? Because you don't have enough food supply for her to
Right.
be in the
I
dark.
think she was feeding her her own food supply as well, because each time it came with a packet for the Matrix and for the other self. I think Stu was
Oh.
feeding her the other self stuff as well, and just like staying awake for the entire time instead of swapping.
Got it. Got it. Okay. That makes sense. I did not think of that. Yes. But I guess I want to get your thoughts more on like um of course where we get to the end where, you know, Elizabeth is kind of like, Elizabeth is no longer Elizabeth. Elizabeth is
Right.
very much giving us like Hunchback. And I did watch a video by Broy Deschanel talking about how the movie feels a lot like hacksploitation, where like women who are older and more like decrepit looking have a more sinister role to play in
Right.
horror films,
She's
because
a witch. Yeah.
yeah, she's a witch, because like, you know, aging is so gross and disgusting and like, it's scary, you know what I mean? And you know, I don't feel like the movie, I don't know if the movie has exploitation in it, maybe because like this is the first time I've heard of it, but I do see like the point that she made, where it kind of feels like, I think I already brought this up, how like the movie does kind of like undermine the point. And like when she decides to terminate it, like you said before, she decides to terminate Sue, and then she doesn't go through with it because like she needs her. In my mind, I was like, nah, girl, we're actually good, we're actually good off
Let's
this.
move on. You
we
can get a
had
wig, girl. You can
we had our
we can
fun,
move on from this.
we
Yeah.
had our laughs. You know, the guy across the way, he doesn't need to know she's dead, because he does not actually
Right.
matter. But I was
I
curious to
think
see, what did you think
sorry.
of the, sorry, I was curious to see, what did you think of the termination scene, and then like what happened after that?
Again, I love like that moment where she does it. She terminates Sue,
Yeah.
and then is like immediately like, "Oh no, I need you," is like very, ugh, for me.
Yeah.
Um, and then when she wakes Sue back up again, when she manages to revive Sue and they have a fight, it's so gory and awful, and it is disgusting.
When she kicks her across the room, I screamed.
Yeah.
I sort
It's
of had
like
to.
very funny and
Yeah.
also like so gross.
Yeah.
Um and also like the scene of the that has also like become like a little like gif meme on the internet of like of Elizabeth dragging Sue's unconscious body through the hallway is very funny. Um but kind of like to your point about like her becoming like more of a like a horror movie hag before that, I do kind of feel like it's like a I don't know, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, or like a Phantom of the Opera style thing where, and I feel like the cooking scene like demonstrates it. Like the more she starts to look hag like, the more she gets bitter, and the more she kind of like turns into a cackling witch. And I feel like, I don't know, I still like it. Like I like that that's a self-fulfilling thing where like she loses her own sense of self because she's lost her beauty.
Yeah, I do agree with you on that. It does feel like the self fulfilling prophecy of like you spend so much time trying to not look older and not trying to look like an old rundown hag, and even though you were fired from your job because you like aged out of it, essentially, it doesn't mean you've lost all of your vitality. It doesn't mean that you're not young and beautiful anymore. It just means that they no longer value all that you have to offer, but that doesn't mean that your career is completely over. You know what I mean? And I feel like her insecurities about herself kind of coming to the forefront, and her looking kind of old and hunchback and
Right.
like, like an older woman. It's kind of, it does feel like the self-fulfilling prophecy where she truly has kind of become all that she like hates, like she
Right.
took the shot of the green liquid to become a better, more perfect version of herself, and now she is like the woman that she dreaded becoming for like most of her life. And I feel like in the movie, obviously we're focusing on like the substance and everything, but I feel like even prior to like her taking the substance, it's not like she didn't do things like get like Botox or like get plastic surgery or like a tummy tuck or whatever, so that she could continue to be conventionally attractive and continue to like try and keep herself from aging too much. You know what I
Right.
mean? And when she does the whole scene where she's like taking off her makeup and she's like scrubbing it off, she has the scarf, she's like trying so desperately to hide certain parts of her body. It felt so. It did feel very real. Like
Right.
it did feel very
Yeah.
real to me because I remember times where like I am very bad at putting on makeup. Like when I was 18 and I started working, I finally started buying makeup for myself, and I watched like hours and hours of tutorials to try like put it on so it looked good. And I never really learned how to master it. I never learned how to put it on perfectly. And eventually I just came to a point where like I'm not going to wear makeup anymore. I'm just going to work on like skincare and stuff cuz like I don't really care like how I look with or without makeup on, because I feel like, I am beautiful and I look good with it or without it. Either way, it's too much of a hassle to put it on because I worry too much about how my face looks, and I touch my face constantly, and I don't want to look at my fingernails and be like, oh, that's foundation. That's my fingers on there. Like I can't do that. And to see her reach the point in the movie where she feels so, I guess, burdened and sad is so disheartening. And low key, like when she put on the scarf for her dress to like hide her chest, I was like, no, 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 no. That doesn't go with the dress, girl. Take that off.
Yeah.
But then I was like, oh, yes, sunspots, aging, yes. Because, like, it reminded me of. I'm going to bring it back to Mean Girls the musical, but it reminded me of this thing they did when Renee Rapp was first on Broadway for Mean Girls the musical, playing Regina George. She had, the bunny outfit or the bunny costume that she was wearing. I think it's a bunny costume. And basically, like, Renee Rapp is not as thin as other women. I feel like she's just mid-size if you had to like characterize her in anything. But,
Right.
she's gorgeous either way. Beautiful, beautiful woman. And at some point when the show was running on Broadway, they put like a skirt attachment to the back part of her bunny costume to, I guess, cover her
To
cellulite or
hide.
whatever. Yeah. And when she talked about it in an interview, she said it was, when she was describing it, it was something that was very, very hard for her to have to deal with
Yeah.
because like
Humiliating.
everyone in the cast could see that like why that's there and why they added that to her costume. And her having to go on stage and have to play this confident, strong, beautiful character, but she doesn't feel that way inside, was something that was very difficult for her. And it was so many times where I was watching the movie and I was just thinking about it's a movie that causes you to reflect on so many things you see. And I didn't realize how many things
Right.
like there are so I didn't realize how many like interview moments, how many times I see in like online or like other people's careers where like people are constantly taking apart and picking apart your appearance. And they're looking at you from the outside. They're looking at you like you are a doll, like you are
Right.
some figurine, like you're an object, and not looking at the person and what you
Right.
possess and what you bring. And that's the thing that's so sad because like Elizabeth is like talented, gorgeous, amazing, like sensational. You know, she had this beautiful career, and I feel like, girl, if the workout tapes are working out, then like let's do something else. Let's do something different. Let's write a book. You know, let's go. Let's do a memoir. You know what I mean? Let's get in the studio. Maybe you could sing. But I don't fault her for wanting to, you know, try something else. And like when she, you know, becomes the old haggard woman, it's like, oh girl. You know, in your head, you're kind of like, maybe you should have taken a substance. But in the back of my head, mind, like, I don't blame her for it. I don't blame her for it. But like, you're looking at her, it's like, gosh, this is how far we've come. You know what I
Right.
mean? I do wish she killed Sue. I'm not gonna lie. I do wish she kind of like ended it because at that point we really needed to let it go. But eventually Sue wakes up out of nowhere and then starts kicking her ass, and that's when I really started losing my mind because I was like, they can't be awake at the same time because like
Right.
that's not how it
It's never
works.
happened before.
But then they are, you know, and of course that doesn't work either. Oh my god. So we have to talk about Monster Sue, and I'm not gonna lie because I watched it at home and I
Right.
saw what was happening. I was like, oh god, I can't
Yeah.
look at this. So I want to hear like how you saw Monster Sue in the theater and how people reacted to it because I did not have that experience. So I'm interested to see like what was it like for you to see that.
Um, I mean, when she okay, first of all, like the creature design is amazing.
Mm.
And kind of like reminded me of Joseph Merrick, the Elephant Man, like very much like the face. Um, but I think one of the moments where I vocally reacted and I was like, "Oh hell yeah." Was when she just went to go put the dress on and like get dressed because I didn't see that coming at all. Like
Yeah.
I thought she was gonna flip out about the way she looks. But Monstro Eliza Sue, I think is her name,
Yeah.
wakes up and she's like, "All right, let's go. It's time to do the the New Year's Eve show," and puts her dress on, sticks her sticks her little earrings in her holes in her hat. And on the back is like a Demi Moore and Elizabeth who is constantly like in a screaming position.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, she heads to the New Year's Eve show. And uh I think like when like in that like grand finale where people call her a monster and start attacking her and she's bleeding everywhere and also where the boob falls out of her face. That was when like the whole audience was like rioting. People were screaming. Like luckily there aren't really any lines of dialogue, just like people screaming and saying she's a monster because like in a theater it was riotous.
I have to say like when I saw the ending, I saw Monster Sue. I was shocked. I'm not gonna lie. And at that
Yeah,
point I was like I feel like in my head I was like I feel like I cannot continue. But then I was like we are not
it's gross.
wimps. We're not wimps. We're gonna make it through. If I could watch Dead Ringers, the original film, and that freaking Amazon Prime show, I could get through this. I could survive. I could watch it. And it was so satisfying seeing Dennis Quaid be covered in slime and guts and
Blood, yeah, and
blood.
pus. There's so
God,
much blood, there's so much pus. It's really the pus for me. Like
I'm not
it's
gonna
so
lie.
gross.
When Margaret Qualley was like, you know, having like her little episode, and then her tooth falls out. I was like, oh girl.
Awful.
I was like, girl, you know what? That's fine. We
She just
could
starts
wipe.
pulling them out.
Yeah, she starts pulling them. I was like, oh girl, stop doing it. Stop touching your mouth. Stop it.
Oh,
And when her ear just comes off, I was like, oh, I was like, that's
it's
when I
falling
lost.
apart.
That's when I fully lost it. That's when I was like, oh, absolutely not. So her taking the substance to try and like, I don't know what she thought was going to happen. I don't know if she thought a younger her would just come out of her and then she will be fine. But like,
Maybe. Yeah.
when I saw her do it, I was like, oh, this is a bad idea. This is actually the worst idea I've ever seen in my life. And of course, the monster emerges, and whew, I actually was surprised by her putting on the dress, and then her putting on
Yeah.
the poster of
Yeah.
Elizabeth, and then her
Elizabeth
walking
face.
down the aisle, and everyone's like, "You're so pretty, you're so pretty," and I'm
Yeah.
like, "She's 4 feet tall, she's 3 feet wide, she's not a
Right.
person." But of
She's a
course,
monster.
like she's literally like, girl, that's not a human body. Y'all know that, right? You know what
And then
people look like, right?
the guy tries to chop her head off and she just grows another one. It's awful. It's so gross. It's so disgusting. And also very funny.
Yes. And also very funny, yes. Because you know
And
what?
also like a little sad too. Like Margaret Qualley's performance as her is like really good when she just keeps saying, like, it's still me. I'm still Elizabeth, I'm still Sue. It is very sad and also very funny.
It's like, it's still me. It's like, girl, we don't know you. We don't know you. No, no, no.
Also, what's very funny and very French is like all the boobs out on network TV. All the dancers have their tits out.
Because this is
I
not
was
an
like,
NBC.
girl.
This
Poorly
is
girl. We
this
don't do
is
that in America.
this is not a BBC either. What is going on here? Someone call Andy Cohen. What's happening?
You gotta at least put some pasties on them. Coralie, we don't do that here.
It's so funny to see like the scene where she sees Dennis Quaid and the ugly suit, and all those men around her, and he's like, smile, pretty girl, smile. I'm like, smart man, shut up. But she smiles like so brightly, and these young women flaunt themselves right by her, and they completely are distracted. They follow those women down. They're like, ho, ho, ho. I'm like, these men are idiots.
Yeah.
You're idiots. But like, that's literally it. Like, they like the nice, young, plump, tight, shiny thing. And when all the people are looking at her like, oh, she's so beautiful, she's so beautiful, it's like, y'all, that's not her. She's not there. But even when the guy comes to the elevator and she's holding her ear in her hand, and he's like, he doesn't even regard her. He doesn't even see her. And he gets out, like, it's like you're invisible, almost. Like, as long as you are pretty enough and good enough to be there, you're there. But we don't really need to acknowledge you and like all that you are, as long as you're the pretty thing that we can occasionally look at and feel good about, and then we look away. Because that's it. Because you're telling me that the guy across the hall, Dennis Quaid, and them two men in the casting room are really the men that we need to listen to on who's beautiful and who's not. Because let's be real, the guy across the hall had no chance with her. He has no chance with any woman who looks like Margaret Qualley. First of all, I don't want to get too much on like the man she's actually seeing, because like we could leave that there. But you know, men have a lot of gumption and a lot of audacity, but not a lot to back it up. You know,
Right.
So
the men are the bad guys in the movie.
I mean, of course they are, because like I'm not gonna blame Margaret Qualley for wanting to be young, hot, and free. You know, that's what everyone wants to be at the end of the day. You know, like live life. You know, life is short, so like why not live at large? You know what I mean?
Right.
Yes. And I did find it, a lot of people have like obviously the a lot of people kind of like analyze, you know, Monster Row as, you know, Elizabeth and Sue finally feeling free because they don't have a body holding them back. Like, it's just them. They're there. They feel liberated in a sense. And I get that people see it that way. the way I saw it was that, like, this is what happens. You know, you want women to fit into a certain box. You want women to have a certain nose, certain kind of lips. Their boobs have to be at this height and this size. You know, your waist has to be Coke bottle, completely flat, and your ass has to be perky, but not too jiggly. And your thighs have to be nice and tight and cute little dainty feet. They want you to be Barbie, but not too Barbie, but Barbie enough where they can touch and hold you. And when you get tired of that, when you don't want to fit into that anymore, you know what you do? You lose your mind. You rage out. You crash out. You go postal. Because what else am I supposed to do with this body to fit into your impossible beauty standards? Because first, people were upset at Jessica Simpson because she was a size 10. And they were saying that she was fat. She is a normal body. It's fine. And then, everybody wants to get a BBL. Everyone wants to be Black China. Everybody wants to Kim K. Everybody wants to look slim waist, big boobs, fat ass. And now we're all going back to being thin. We're all going back to having heads that are too big for our tiny little bodies. And somehow losing all this weight in a strange amount of time that is not healthy and is not normal under a regular workout and exercise and eating regimen. So these different trends that people have for their bodies and this pressure that you have to look like everyone else, to fit this certain standard, to embrace however it is you look. We keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And at the end of the day, it's like, why? Why are you doing this? And for whom? Because if you don't feel happy, if you don't feel satisfied, if you don't feel fulfilled in these different ways that you're changing yourself, then at a certain point, like, why even bother? You know what I mean? Why does it even matter? Because Sue literally put a black market drug in her body just so she could possibly go back to looking the way she did. And in my mind, I was like, oh, this bitch is gonna turn into a baby. No, turns into a flesh monster. Because you know what? When it's all said and done, who really cares? Because when the happiest Elizabeth felt was when she was on her cracked star fame, cracked Hollywood star, and she was like
stars
and happy, and she was finally free. And at that moment, when I saw her smiling, I was like, you know what, girl, I felt that.
She did it.
Yes. And what a wild ride that movie was.
I love it so much.
I have to say, like, in watching the film, it encouraged me to, like, look up stuff about Ozempic, because, like, people talk about it all the time, and me, oh my gosh, something that always got on my nerves whenever I went to the doctor was, like, them always attributing, like, my ailments to my weight, and it was really frustrating because, like, there was, like, 2-3 years of my life where, like, there's, like, actually a year or two of my life where I worked out every day, I ate well, I was perfectly fine, and I lost some weight, but I wasn't thin, but I was fine. And now I work out like maybe every other day. I eat perfectly normal like any other person does. And even now, like, I do happen to get sick. And I feel like it might be symptoms of like having COVID and like my immune system isn't the same as it was before. But I am not as sick as I normally get. And I'm not like dying or ailing in any sense of the term. But you know, on my last doctor's visit, it was a checkup. There was nothing wrong with me. I was fine. My doctor brought up that, you know, you could get Ozempic through your insurance. And I was like, well, I don't have diabetes. He was like, oh, no, your blood sugar is fine. I was like, so why would you recommend that to me? And he was like surprised. He was like, oh, well, if you don't want it, then we don't have to get it. Like, that's fine. You know, like, it's discounted, you know, but it's fine. And I was like, no, I don't need it. In the back of my mind, I felt kind of bad, but then I was like, no, he didn't have to recommend that to me. Because how many women are you bringing this up to for them to inject medicine into their bodies that's going to make them hate food, that's going to make them sleepy, drowsy, that's going to mess up so many things in their life? Like, you want me to inject this medicine that is meant for diabetics into my body at the prospect that I may lose weight? And in the early studies they had for Ozempic, 86% of people lost weight, 14% didn't. So I could easily be in the 14%. And even if I did lose weight, what will that change about my life and how I sleep, how I think, how I eat, how I work out, just so I can lose some. Like, is it really that serious? Is it that
Right.
desperate? It's not. No, it's not. So I was really just like, I guess I was just annoyed by the fact that the doctor brought that up. And like, I don't talk about personal stuff on the podcast, but I feel like it's relevant because people feel like they can just speak to you any kind of way if you look a certain way. And
Right.
because people's bodies are changing so often, you see so many celebrities like losing so much weight now, it's like, oh, well, I guess everyone else should hop on this trend. And it's like, who said that? If your friend jumped off a bridge, would you do it as well? I think not. And I'm good over here. I'm good on dry land. Thank you very much.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry for that whole spiel, but I just,
No, yeah, it brings that up, and the all the needle imagery is very
Oh
prescient.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot about it. Also, I can't even like imagine like regularly injecting yourself with something because people don't start losing weight until like month 3. So now
Mhm.
I have to be hungry for 3 months. Like, I can't do it. I'm sorry, y'all. I can't do it. I already have a gym membership. Like, your girl is fine. Okay, like it's not for me. Yes. But I was wondering, when you were watching the film and you're just kind of like seeing everything going on, was there anything that you felt like resonated with you deeply besides like the mirror scene? Because I feel like a lot of people really related to that scene. But was there anything that you watched or you saw in the film that kind of spoke to you, maybe like your own personal experience or like something that other people have shared with you?
Yeah, again, I feel like the kind of like split the almost split personality that you have when you're struggling with like eating disorders or body dysmorphia, the self-hatred and um the kind of like mental split of yourself into like subject and object. um I think resonated with me. Like I said, the line where she had just terminated Sue and she was like, wait, I need you, also like very deeply resonated with me. This when you have these like addictions basically, that you feel like you can't, like even though it's destroying you, you can't really survive without them. Like all of that felt like very um like it was sometimes surprising that this like very campy, very funny, very disgusting horror movie had these like small moments of like, ooh, that gets me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. Um, and I feel like that really wraps up a lot about The Substance. I think it was a very powerful film filled of a lot of substance, a lot of symbolism, a lot of things that were like kind of on the nose. But I think
Right.
that even with the movie being so not subtle about a lot of things, so many things went over people's heads. It's just kind of like, girl, how do we miss
It's
this?
surprising. Yeah.
Yeah, it is very surprising. And I think that Demi Moore did a phenomenal job in this movie. And Margaret Qualley being like the young thing, like I said already, was a perfect casting choice. I think it was really great. And I feel like if it was another director, I definitely think Sydney Sweeney would have been another good
Okay.
pick
Yeah.
for, the younger person to be in this movie. I think she would have been really awesome. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it was a really sensational film, and it just reminded me a lot about like, certain things you see in Hollywood that are just so normalized, and people just act like, oh, that's just the way it is, but like, it doesn't have to be the way that it is. Like we can do things a little bit differently, But I really did enjoy the film. Did you have any last thoughts about The Substance or like any of the symbolism behind the movie?
I don't think so. I think we covered it. It's 10 out of 10. I love it. I think it's a ride.
Yeah. And I do have to say, I think that I really enjoyed the ending because so much of the movie has pushed like the envelope with like Cronenberg levels of like body horror and gore, like, just like seeing all the things that happen in the film. seeing, you know, the monster and just like kind of losing it on the audience and everything else that happened, it feels, it does feel kind of satisfying in a way,
Right.
because
Yeah.
that is kind of like what it's like to be a woman sometimes, where you have to be so controlled and like you have to fit into your box. So you finally get to like kind of lose it a little bit. It's very
Have
freeing.
everybody in blood and pus. Yeah.
It is very freeing. So I did enjoy it. I liked it. So, guys, that was kind of like our review and analysis of The Substance. I really hope you go check it out, because I believe it is still in theaters. Where I live, it's only showing in like smaller theaters that show like usually smaller indie films. But if you guys want to watch it at home, it is streaming now on Mubi, so you can watch it there for free. And you can also rent it, I believe, on YouTube and Amazon as well. And we can close out the show with, you know, watch list, which is the final segment of the show where we talk about all the movies or TV shows that we're currently watching or we plan on watching that, you know, we like to recommend to people. I know that I talked about Starstruck, which is on Max
Right.
and Netflix. There is one movie I saw on Amazon Prime. It is a 1 hour animated film called Look Back. And it's a film about this young girl. She draws comics for her school's newspaper, and at one point in the movie, like it's very in the very beginning, her teacher tells her that like there is a student who usually stays home mainly, and they get homeschooled, but they would like to draw for the school newspaper as well. And so she like gives up, you know, a small like four, like 1 by 4 slot for her to draw her own comics. And she soon realizes that the student that like mainly lives at home is a lot more talented than her. But she soon meets the student later on, and they become quick friends because she realizes that the student was inspired by her and is a fan of her, and they connect through their love of art, through their love of drawing, through their love of creativity. And it's a very wholesome film. It's very like young, and it's very bittersweet. And it was a film that I watched, and even though it was like really short, it really stuck with me and like struck a chord in my heart to see like two young women connect through their love of like art and connect through this like hobby that they really enjoy, that they soon turn into a career. But you know, the film also explores like what is it like to like big connection through creativity, what it's like to like, you know, make a friend, what does it mean when someone is like meant to be your soulmate, not in a romantic sense but in like a platonic sense. So
Hmm.
it was a really lovely movie that I saw because I watch a lot of anime, and because I watch a lot of anime, I get a lot of anime edits on my For You page, and someone did an edit to this movie, and they used a really sad song. So I was like, all right, now I have to go watch this movie so I can watch all the edits, because TikTok's going to spoil it for me. And I watched it and I fully cried on my lunch break, but I loved
Oh,
it.
what is it called again?
It's called Look Back. It's on
Back.
Amazon Prime. Yeah.
All right.
It's a fairly,
Nice.
I think it just released, so it's fairly new, but I
Okay.
I really enjoyed it. So I would recommend that to you guys to go check it
Yeah.
out. It's quite lovely. It's quite wonderful.
Shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna check that out.
Are there any movies or TV shows you've been watching recently that you want to recommend to the viewers?
I have been watching bad Christmas movies. Yeah, it's the time of year. I got started early this year. So I've been watching, the Netflix cinematic Christmas universe.
Of course.
The Princess Switch and the Christmas Prince, that kind of
Mm.
thing. I did put one on. I put on an actual Hallmark movie about a week or so ago that unfortunately I was like, oh no, it's actually kind of good. I put it on because I wanted to watch trash, and like it's still schmaltzy.
Yeah.
But it was like legitimately cute.
Oh,
I think it's called Christmas at the Biltmore. It's a
okay.
Hallmark Christmas movie, but it's on Netflix.
Wait,
And
Biltmore as in the resort in South Carolina?
maybe that's where it's set. It is set in a like a big like stately home that's like a hotel.
Girl.
Um, So it's like about like this screenwriter is trying to has been hired to write basically the reboot of this classic Christmas movie that's very It's a Wonderful Life-esque, called His Merry Wife, that's from like the 1940s. And in this original movie, the guardian angel of this guy is trying to get him set up with a woman, and the twist is the woman is his wife. So it's like this classic 1940s like rom-com with a tragic ending kind of thing, where like
Oh.
he has to like give up, because he's dead now. He has to like let his wife move on with another man. So she's been hired to write this the reboot of it, basically, and she gets sent by the production company to go stay at the hotel. And then there's like time travel, basically, like a magical time, what are they called, the things with the sand in them, the sand timers.
Uh-huh. The
It sends her
sundials?
the
The,
sand,
the sundials?
not sundials, the timers that
The
you
hourglass?
yes, that's what it's called.
Okay.
Hourglass. So a magical hourglass sends her back in time, like for however long the like the an hour, or however long it takes, to like the filming of the original thing. So she's like going back and forth between 2023 or whatever, and 1940, whatever it was, and meeting like the cast and stuff. And it's and obviously she falls in love with the guy who plays uh the guardian angel. um and it's so freaking cute. Like, the ending was a little, I didn't love the ending, but it was like the happy ending that it needed to be. I wish that they had stuck with a sadder ending.
Hmm.
But it is a Christmas movie. It is a Hallmark Christmas movie. But I legit like enjoyed myself. I was like, oh no, this is actually a very good movie.
Oh. It's
If you
called
want to watch a Christmas romance, I think it's Christmas at the Biltmore. Let me just double check.
it's called the Biltmore Christmas.
A Biltmore Christmas. There it is. Yeah. It's legitimately cute.
Oh. I'm actually looking it up and there are actually good reviews for this.
Yeah, it's got like a 92% or something on Rotten
Yeah.
Tomatoes. And I just like I literally put it on because I was like, yeah, that looks cheesy. And then I genuinely enjoyed myself. So if you're looking for a little holiday romance, if you're into holiday rom-coms, it is actually a very satisfying watch.
Okay, this is perfect because I always need like some kind of movie to watch with my mom every so often.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bookmark this. That way I can watch it. I'm probably just gonna rent it on Amazon. That way we can watch it because I do not have a Hallmark Plus.
It's
Because
also on Netflix. I watched it on Netflix.
oh, okay, well if it's on Netflix, then I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have Hallmark either, but it's on Netflix, and I just put it on during my cheesy Christmas movie watch, and I was like, "Oh no, I'm really enjoying this."
Thank you for the recommend. Okay, I don't think you heard me.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. I was just saying I'll give it a look see.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, yeah.
Because it is the holiday season and
That
holiday
time of year.
movies are yes girl every year and holiday movies are like a staple on
Mhm.
Netflix. I know that there is a new Christmas movie with Christina Milian on Netflix called
Yeah, that looks good.
yeah, I think it's called Meet Me at Christmas. I am going to watch it because I think I am going to review it for the pod, so that'll
Nice.
be fun to talk about. Not gonna lie, I'm not always the biggest holiday movie person because around the holidays I usually just like watch like musicals or I watch like
Mm,
you know the kind of like quintessential animated movies like Ratatouille, Toy
right,
Story, A Bug's Life. You know, every so often we'll watch Elf. You know what I mean?
right.
We'll watch the Charlie Brown films. You know what I mean? But I think this year I'm probably gonna rewatch Holdovers because
Oh, yeah.
I actually didn't expect to like the movie as much as I did. I actually went to go
Mhm.
see it last year because I had some free time and some extra cash, and the movie was playing at a movie theater close by. So I was like, let's just go see it and see how it is because it may be good. And I did not expect to start crying in the movie theater, but girl,
Right.
you know, it moved me to tears.
I
And
watched it in prep for Oscars season, but I
mm,
didn't watch it at Christmas time. So that's what I need to do.
yes, I enjoyed it, and I love. Oh my gosh, I loved seeing Danielle Radcliffe. Rad Randolph? Wait, her name's Danielle, right? Not me forgetting her
What's
name.
her
Hold
name?
on. Oh no, now I have to look it up. I have to look it up real quick. Hold on.
Is she
Hold
on, right?
overs. Divine Joy
Divine,
Randolph.
yes, Divine
See,
Joy Randall.
seeing Divine Joy Randolph completely sweep at awards
Yeah.
season, I have to tell you, it was like crack cocaine through my veins because I have been a fan of her for years. I remember her in like Dolomite is My Name when I saw her in that movie, and I was like, you see, that movie should have been nominated for an Academy Award. But you know what? They want to be sneaky, and that's fine because Eddie Murphy really put his all into that press run. Like he even went back to SNL, even though I know he did not want to go back to SNL, but he did anyways because he wanted that Academy Award. You know, he's trying to do what he has to do. And Divine Joy Randolph was amazing in that movie. She was amazing in High Fidelity, the remake on Hulu. She
Mhm.
is a Tony winning actress. And to see her in that movie, I was like, oh, this is going to be a good movie. Did I expect for her to completely sweep? No, I didn't. But did I enjoy it? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because let me tell you something. If it wasn't going to be her, it should have been oh my gosh, the actress from Orange is the New Black, and she was in The Color Purple, the movie musical. Hold on, I have to look her up. How am I forgetting everybody's name? Hold on. Danielle Brooks. If it wasn't Divine Joy Randolph, I wanted it to be Danielle Brooks. And if it wasn't Danielle Brooks, I wanted it to be Fantasia so badly. Because for Fantasia to not win American Idol, but then get an Academy Award, it's like, ha, in your face. See what I could do?
Following in
Yes.
Jennifer's footsteps.
Oh my gosh. I would have lost my mind. But you know what? I was more than happy to see her completely like kill it, like annihilate award season. And it's that kind of win where it's like so satisfying because like she deserved it. She is talented. She is amazing. Like I've loved her career for so long. And you know when certain actors, certain actresses, they have like those press runs where you know it's like just give them the award already so they can shut up. Like that's really how I feel sometimes. Or it's like, you know, it's
Yeah.
kind of a surprise sometimes. Like Olivia, not Wilde, Coleman winning the
Right.
Academy Award for The Favorite. It's like, girl, oh her. Everyone thought it was Lady Gaga or Glenn Close. Like, oh, you know, like that is like very rewarding. But seeing her get that award, whoo, oh my gosh, it was like vindication. It was like, yes, girl, take it. Take that shit. Yeah, it's yours. You know, I was very happy. So I will be rewatching the holdovers and I will be crying. And I will
Nice.
be happy. Yes. Oh, another something else that I've watched recently that I really enjoyed was The Diplomat on Netflix because I need more political thrillers in my life. And The
Mhm.
Diplomat, I feel like, has like the high intensity kind of plot that you see in Scandal without the soap drama feel. You know, it's not too soapy. There is drama, there is intrigue, there is salaciousness, but I think that this show does a good job of keeping it in the realm of reality and keeping it grounded. And as you watch the show, there are a lot of interesting intricacies that I learn about like world politics in just watching that show. So I really enjoyed it, and also Kerry Russell is amazing in that show because she was amazing in The Americans. She's amazing in so many things. Like she's actually a very strong leading woman, the same way like Rebecca Ferguson is. So seeing
Right.
her in Diplomat was actually like um, sensational, and it makes me want to watch The Americans because people have talked about that show a lot, but I've never
Right.
watched it. But after watching Diplomat, I was like, I might have to tune in because if this is what she's giving, then I need to I need to catch up. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes. But guys, that is our show today. I want to thank Hoots. Thank you, Hoots, for coming on.
Thanks for having me again.
Yay. We're so happy to have you. Where can people find you?
You can find me at Hoots YouTube on YouTube. You can find me at Hoots on Blue Sky. And I'm Punished Hoots on Twitter for as long as Twitter is still around. I don't know. I feel
Mm.
like I'm using it less and less every day because I it's turning into an awful place.
Yeah, yeah, it is. But guys, go ahead and check out Hoots on all the stuff. Her YouTube, Blue Sky, the podcast, Respect the Dead, with her and
Kaylin Conrad.
Kaylin Conrad. Okay, I was about to say something else. Kaylin Conrad, that they host together. Go listen to that. It's amazing. And guys, don't forget to check us out on all social media. Find us on, YouTube. Find us on Patreon. Find us on Instagram, TikTok, and, Twitter for the time being. And don't forget to, share with your friends and family. I will see you guys next week with a new topic, new guests, like we do every single week. And don't forget to tell your friends and family about your new favorite podcast. I've been meaning to watch that. I'm your host, Monica, and we'll talk soon. Bye.
Bye.